Natalie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good. So, did you know that it is the summer of the luxury three-row SUV?
Oh, well, I'm here for that.
Me too. I didn't really know that going into the summer, but then we saw the GLS, the Mercedes-Benz GLS and GLE, which you're going to be test driving very soon,
So
right?
excited. Oh,
And
yeah.
you spent some time in the at the reveal in the prototypes. And so you're going to get a first person hands-on experience with those, including the plug-in hybrid, which is my favorite of the all the different trims. That's the one I like the best. I think it actually might be the best plug-in hybrid on the road. Never mind the fact that it's a Mercedes-Benz. I just love that SUV. That one, the one that I test drove did not have a third row, so it may not be available with a third row, but you will tell us when you test
I'll let
drive
you
it.
know.
But then add to that the first ever Audi Q9 and SQ9, which we got a look at a couple of weeks ago in New York. And then upcoming in August, so in a few weeks, we will get our very first look at the Genesis GV90, which is the first three-row SUV, true three-row SUV from Genesis. They've had a third row option in the GV80 for a while, but is very much a convenience row. It's not a true third row. And it's only an option on like one trim in the middle of the lineup. So if you want the top of the line features, you can't get the third row. And then check this out. Um, Land Rover is adding a third row option to its smaller 110 Defender. So if you think about the Defender, there's the 90, which is two doors. There's the 110, which is four doors, but it's really sort of a mid-size SUV. And then there's the 130, which is longer. That's more like a Tahoe length and size. It really is more like a full-size SUV. And it has a true third row. But what Range Rover has done, or Land Rover has done, is they have added this convenience row, what they call a family comfort pack. And you can get they call it a super six. You can get captain's chairs in the center and then two seats in the back, and then have that pass through. So that's something. I was just at my local Land Rover dealer yesterday talking with him, and he's going to have his rolling into the dealership pretty soon. And so I will be just going on down there to the Land Rover dealer with all my camera gear and shooting a video because I cannot wait to see that. I think, it's funny. He said that it wasn't something that he would think about ordering, but he had customers who read about it and came in and ordered it right away.
Oh,
So
that's
he's
so
got some
cool.
coming in. Yeah. And so as soon as they get built, he'll have them. And he is very excited about that. I'm very excited about that because it is the summer of the luxury three-row SUV.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, what else do you have coming up besides the Mercedes-Benz event?
So my inner child will be very excited because we're gonna actually go to LA for Hot Wheels. I'm so excited.
Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you going to their headquarters?
Yes, they're gonna go in LA, and I can't wait to share more details soon. But I've got Hot Wheels galore, so this is right up my alley.
Awesome. That's awesome. That will be, I feel like getting to, we get to play with the big toys all the time.
Right,
But
exactly.
Hot Wheels are the small toys that are where like the passion builds, where you get to play with them as a little kid. This is your car. And they build such amazing models that you can, there's one called Brick Shop that you can build them yourself
Oh, fun.
and you can put in the engine, you can customize them with different wheels and different rocker panels and different spoilers and things like that. Decals, you could put decals on them. And to think about being this little kid, or maybe, a middle school kid, playing with these cars, they are fully functional. You can put them on tracks. There's so much you can do with them. And that really gives you that inspiration for when you're 16 and you're thinking about your first car, or you're in your 20s and thinking about buying a brand new car. and you've done some of the homework already, thinking about them, looking at them, understanding their proportions and how they're designed and how they make you feel. And that's pretty cool. I cannot wait to hear or see on Instagram your experience at the Hot Wheels HQ. That'll be fun.
Yes, lots of color. You've been warned.
So I hope that while you're out and about, that you get to drive the car from our guest today, Stefanie Dang, who is the product planner behind the 2027 Kia Seltos. And she, I was very lucky to go to the presentation where they went through all the details of the car. It was the first time she'd ever presented to the media.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, and it was so great to meet her and to hear her talk about this car and talk about the approach that she took building the Kia Seltos for a very enthusiastic and hungry audience for this little baby Telluride. All right, let's go to the conversation with Stefanie. Stefanie, hi, it's so good to see you.
Likewise.
It's been a few weeks since we first met on the Kia Seltos launch, and you had the great grace and privilege to stand up in front of groups of journalists and present the Kia Seltos. Was that your first time presenting to media?
It is actually, yeah.
Well, you did a great job,
Thank
and
you.
you told the story quite well. So let's start with talking about what you do. Tell us about your job and how you came into this role.
Okay. So I'm a product planning specialist on the Kia Seltos team, and my role is basically to bridge between what the consumers actually want and what ends up being in the vehicle. We work on things such as like trim strategy, feature planning, and since I'm the targeted demographic, I often present like the whys, right, behind the product, like at the MPI, to on certain decisions to inner departments and also like the media, like yourself. As for how I got here, I kind of just fell into automotive. I've always been drawn to the intersection of like strategy and storytelling, and I feel that product planning is, a great, and I guess it encapsulates all of that. So product planning is a mix of like data, competitive analysis, and also most importantly, understanding the target customer. But it's also translating all of that into that, what people can resonate with, like a product, like the vehicle itself. I feel that Seltos has been a great fit because it's such an accessible entry point into the Kia lineup. And it's smart, it's confident, it's connected, and we are really proud of the product.
And it gives you all the vibes that Kia has been giving out over the last few years with the Telluride and the EV9, which, design-wise has been so important. The star map lighting, which is that sort of, I don't know. I think of it as like kind of a lightning bolt, but it's that light signature on the front and also on the rear, and the sort of Range Rover vibes, like more minimalist, more detailed, more beauty in the details, but minimalist in the overall look and feel. So talk about product planning a little bit, because that was a pretty big introduction, the brand new Kia Seltos.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that model and remaking it into the more modern vision of Kia. And so you already said there are a lot of data, a lot of focus on the customer. Give us a little more insight into what else your job entails as a product planner.
So basically, product planning is the discipline of deciding what's on a vehicle before it's even built, right? And making sure that it stays true on that trajectory when it comes to life. Some of the things that we look at are like, as I mentioned, like what the customer wants, their unmet needs, definitely what our competition is doing, where the market is headed. And those are just a few items that translate into decisions. We talk about which features on what trims, how we price it versus the competitors. And then most important is what is the story when it launches? So it's like part strategy, part research, part storytelling. And, you have to really constantly ask yourself like the right question, does this trim make sense? What about this price point? Is this, most importantly, does this make sense to our target customer? And then, will this whole, thing resonate with the media and the buyers? So by the time the vehicle hits the showroom, product planning, we pretty much has touched upon like all aspects of it as far as like decisions and shaping the vehicle itself.
And so you also think about the trim level mix. So
Correct.
how many you're going to produce of this trim versus this trim, and the X lines, and the different levels. So when a customer goes to a showroom and they see, oh, well, that's the top of the line, it's pretty fancy, it's maybe a little above my budget. Talk about what you think about for each of those customers in the trim lineup. What do you want them to see as they're looking at different trims?
All the trims we try to cater to each customer. And then, of course, we understand the segment. It's like a very price sensitive segment. And again, one thing that we definitely don't want to get boxed in is like, just because it's entry price doesn't mean it's something that you have to compromise or it's, basic. So that's why we have, our trims where like the LX is our entry into the price point. It's basically has all the essential features, all the safety, such as like the comprehensive suite of ADAS suites. It's also focused on cargo and comfort. And then if you, want a little bit more, we have the S, which is our, our daily driver. And that's focused on more of the, comfort, convenience, things like has a wireless charger, a power driver's seat. So it's like we implement little features to help them kind of, and it depends on where their priorities lie, right? Like if I have to have this, I'm going to move up. And then, next to us, we also have two X lines, which is our X line S. That's just, has the X line look and the larger wheels. And then we have the top of the line, which is the, X line SX, our aspirational. So we really plan it out where it's just, we have something for everybody. And of course, our EX is the more elevated for people that want more like refinement, like you get the, available, you can get a panoramic sunroof, right? That's the first for Saltos. And also you have an adjustable power lift. So these are the little features that help you kind of prioritize where do you want to be, which features are important for you. So we kind of have that all laid out for our customers when they get in there.
So when you were thinking about the different trims and what you were putting into each one, and the one that I think of the most is the S. Although I drove the EX and I drove the SX. I drove the X line. No, I drove the EX and I drove the.
Oh, the blue
SX.
one is the EX, and then
Yes.
yeah, and then so you drove the EX,
blue one.
and then
Yes.
the terrain brown is the X line SX.
SX, yes.
Yes.
So when you're thinking about these, what were the top priorities that you wanted to bring to customers in these different trims? Like you talked about the daily driver, the entry level. What was it that you really wanted people to have the opportunity to have in these cars?
So there's specific trim and higher segments, right? We definitely want to bring those features down because we feel that the ones that are spending the most money shouldn't be the only ones getting these specific features. Mm-hmm. So obviously, we have the X line SX, that's like the top of the line. So we have, things like our premium audio. It has a panel sunroof. It has, more ADAS features like surround view monitor if you were to get the prestige package. And then talking about the EX is more for like those that are looking for a more elevated, more classic conveniences, like I previously mentioned, like the, adjustable power lift and, things like that.
I'm just going to say I'm a fan of leatherette at all but the entry level model. As a parent and as
it's easy to clean.
Dog owner.
I get that.
And I've always and I live in Texas and it's very hot here.
Okay.
And everyone always says, oh, it's, it's, you're going to, with the hot days and sitting in the sun, and it's not hotter. I promise you, it's not hotter. I mean, black is black, right? If you get a black interior, it's hot. But I love some of the color combinations that you guys came up with. A little
I'm so
more white
glad.
would be make me happy,
Okay.
but that's just me. But I love that you have that, especially because it's easy to clean, it's easy to maintain, it looks good, it feels good, and it just makes you feel like you're not compromising. That's what leatherette does. It makes you feel like it's just not a compromise. And so yay for that. Yay for that.
Thanks.
I want to talk about you and your career a little bit. When you first decided to go into automotive, and Kia is your first automotive job, correct?
No, I've worked for
No.
other
Oh,
OEMs
you have
before.
worked for
Yeah.
other OEMs. And so when you decided to go into automotive, what about the industry attracted you?
Well, I would say it's like multifaceted, right? Like, let's say if you go into finance, you probably go and just be doing finance things or, in the medical healthcare field. But I think in automotive, it has a lot of other departments, options. Like you can go into finance, you can go into marketing, you can go into social media. Honestly, it's one of the few industries where it's like it's strategy, it's design, it's technology, it's human behavior, all encapsulated in one. And what's interesting is that, like a car, it's not just like a item or like a spec sheet, right? It's many things. Like it's some people view as status, right? It's your independence, it's your hobbies, and just, generally how people show up in their lives.
Mhm.
And for me, it's really compelling to be able to work on something that's tangible and emotional both at the same time. And also love the fact that this is an industry where it's constantly evolving, with technology, consumer expectations, market conditions. These are the things that we can't really grasp, right? So, there's definitely always a new problem to solve. So the work is always going to be interesting and challenging.
I will say it does not fail to be interesting. Automotive, just, every time you turn around, there's some great new innovation, there's some great new product, there's, people doing incredible things and incredible women doing incredible things. And so, as you have worked your way through automotive, talk about maybe some opportunities that people might find surprising. You mentioned a few things I think are a little more traditional that you could do anywhere, say
Mhm.
finance, legal, that kind of thing. But what are some of the surprises that you've found working in a company like Kia that maybe you would tell somebody outside who doesn't really know automotive and they might say, you get to do that?
Well, so I think that when people, and I could be wrong, when people talk about automotive, you think about engineering or, manufacturing, right? And these are, I believe, are still male dominated, but I feel like there's a whole nother layer of the business, thriving with women. Like I previously mentioned, where like, there's strategy, marketing, communications research, all of that. And, these roles really shape how a car is positioned, how it's priced and how it's talked about. A lot of this requires understanding of customers. Nowadays, women actually do research that make a lot of these heavy purchase decisions. So I feel that, understanding customers on a human level, females, we can like bring a lot more strength, especially when we're the ones that are making these purchase decisions and having a woman in the room, whether it be like product planning or product strategy. I feel like it's no longer a nice to have, but really a competitive advantage when, in a lot of households, we are the ones that's making these purchase decisions. What are the key features do we look for? Things like that.
Yeah, and it's funny, I still hear pushback from men saying there's no way women have that influence on automotive purchases. They just don't believe it. But, I mean, it's just a fact.
Right. It's
Women
just
buy 65% of all cars, and then they
correct.
influence another 20% of all car purchases because, it's it's a conversation, it's a kitchen table conversation that we
Right.
have about what do we need as a family, what do we need as a couple, And, or what do I need for myself? If I'm not making that decision for family or for, me and my partner, I still need a car and I still am making that decision for myself. So, you know, it's amazing to see so many more women not only working in automotive and being and talking about their careers and talking about what they do, but bringing that influence to the automotive decision making at the
Right.
early part of this rather than complaining about it later because it's not a good fit. Right.
Yeah, so for women, I guess I would say like for women who are just, interested or like contemplating, I mean, it's definitely, we need more women. We need, kind of more viewpoints. And I think it's a competitive advantage to have a female in the room, shaping the,
It,
being that voice, shaping the product.
it absolutely is. I mean, how can you expect to sell something to women if no women are involved in creating it?
Correct.
That's a really tough ask.
Of course.
So let's look down the road a little bit. You mentioned some of the amazing things that automotive is doing, and I think about technology and the software defined vehicle, which is really where our future is going. We think about AI and how it's helping to the car to do so many things, whether it's looking at all the traffic around you and deciding when it might be a good time to start applying those brakes before the driver has had a chance to, or that more technology, the surround view camera that now can record and remember what it's seen on the road and give you a real-time look at a place where you were never be able to see before. Like the technology is amazing, but talk about what you see coming down the road in automotive that you are excited about, that you think will present even more opportunities.
Autonomous driving, definitely. It's hard to nail down one thing with the whole, evolving technology, but I think that moving forward, it's definitely going to be defined by those that, you know, that can think across like disciplines like technology, right? Sustainability is also another important thing.
Mhm.
Customer experience, right? And I think that's the type of like career path that's going to be opening for those people.
Yeah, sustainability is a really good one. I think some of the exciting things that I've seen that you're probably more in the trenches with is reusing materials
Right.
for car interiors, using them, things that might have been considered trash or landfill are now actually being repurposed for things like the soft plastics in cars or
Right.
reflective surfaces, things like that. It's pretty exciting. You guys have a ocean cleanup initiative. Have you been involved with that at all?
I have not, but we do have a great group here that we do a lot of just kind of a, how do you say it, like social awareness, like, yeah, the beach cleanup. We also do what is it, like the food drive harvest. Also,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things going on here that we try to kind of give back to the community.
So if you haven't seen just speaking to everyone, if you haven't seen the story on the ocean cleanup, there is a story over on A Girl's Guide to Cars. It's pretty amazing, some of the things that the Ocean Cleanup Project does and Kia's role in making a lot of that happen. And we will see some of those things, some of the results of some of those things coming through Stephanie's team in future interiors, I'm sure. But talking about some of the other things that go on in your company. Let's talk about mentoring. And is mentoring something that has been important to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think mentoring is huge, as I feel like I would not be where I am today if it was not for the others that took time to show me how things work. Because so much knowledge is just not about, the stuff that you learn, right?
Mhm.
Real knowledge isn't written, and it's through experiences, and it's the stuff that you really learn from people who's either, going through it or has gone through it. I don't have, an exact experience as far as like my mentoring, but I do know that, I've been super fortunate enough to work with like a lot of great leadership, management that truly helped me grow. And I will say that I try to pay it forward to those that are, basically new in the role, imparting my own experiences when I can.
So tell me how you want to show up for them. What is it that you want them to see and to learn from you?
Well, I try to, like you said, showing up is the most important thing. I try to make sure that people are comfortable or they feel comfortable asking questions without judgment. I think that's really important, especially when you're trying to like figure things out. Early in anyone's career, or myself included, so much energy goes into like pretending, acting like you already know the answer, right? And I want to be able to take that pressure off that because it's okay to not know,
Hmm.
nothing is like, you're not like, yeah, you learn everything through a textbook in school, but it's completely different when you go through your, first job or your first career or what have you. And I think that, you can learn so much faster instead of like you're trying to like perform like being confident, right?
Hmm.
So I try to be direct about how things work. I think just basically showing up, checking in, following up, because mentoring, it's a dialogue. It's, you have to be consistent. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah, and it's important to recognize that we learn constantly through our
Yeah,
entire lives. We're not expected to know everything. I think one of my favorite examples is that to go to a product presentation like the one that you did for the Celtos and ask a question that no one in the room has the answer to off the top of their head, none of the engineers, the product planners. It happens almost every time. And I respect that so much that these cars are so complicated and they're so rich in details and functions and people don't want to make a mistake and give me wrong information, that
right.
they're willing to say, I don't know the answer to that, but we'll find out. And then they find out and they share it with you later, which is just as I have so much respect for that. And it is talk about what your process is like in terms of learning. I mean, you have to learn so much about not only the car and what you're doing with the car, but also the customer and also the marketplace. What does that process look like? How do you break that down, and how do you um, how do you bring that kind of a challenge to your team?
I think that the most important thing is just understanding, who you're building the vehicle for, right? Who the customers are, and we have a lot of we have another department in the company that does these research. It's really important to attend the research, go to the focus groups. If somebody answer a question a specific way, you pull them out, you ask them, more questions, your specific things like that. And of course, price point is also important. Just knowing, features, that are appropriate for this segment, right? What are the essentials? What do they need? What do they value? I think the most important thing is just understanding the customer and, making sure that the vehicle is appropriately positioned, also price point. And
Mhm.
I think research helps with a lot of that positioning.
Yeah, I mean, I look at people complain about cars are so expensive, and they are. At the same time, if you sat down and looked at that tally sheet of what each little piece cost and how many of them there are,
Hmm.
I mean, it's as amazing to me that they can be as low priced as they are. Just, that it costs $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever just to ship it. If I was going to ship a car myself, 800 miles, that would cost over $1,000. So, things like that, and the cost of the paint and the cost of the tires and the wheels. And, you start to piece it all together and you're like, I can't believe they could do this for $28,000. That's amazing. So I could see where factoring that in to hit that particular price point has to be a real challenge. So, but nicely done because the Seltos looks pretty amazing, and our test drive was great. The whole story and the video are up on a Girl Scout Cars if you would like to see it. A little plug there. So let's talk about what the your feelings were, your thoughts were in going into the Celtos makeover. Tell us what your favorite features are. If you had to buy the Celtos right now, what would you not walk away without? What would you have to have?
Oh, I have to have the surround view monitor, definitely. It's one of those things that, you don't notice, like you don't think you need it until you tried it. I
Hmm.
think that, a lot of times, well, obviously, like it helps with, I think a lot of the concerns is like city driving, parking, things like that. And a lot of times, when we're driving, we don't notice like the corners or blind spots, or even like, let's be honest, stationary objects that we miss. You know what I mean? And the Celtos, having that surround view monitor on the Celtos definitely helps, mitigate those almost occurrences before
Yep.
they occur. And also with, nowadays with, repairs like automotive, external body repair being so expensive, I just feel like for me, that's a must have. That's actually one of my favorite features to have.
I'm with you. I use my cameras to make sure that I've cleared the parking in my garage. I have a kind of a tight
Right.
garage and two cars.
Same. Yeah.
And it's like, and I try to pull over as close as I can to the wall, but I only have like about 8 inches in the front to have about 2 inches to clear the garage door. So I always pop it in reverse and make sure I've cleared that spot
No,
before I
I
close.
completely agree. It's like I was like, gosh, I think to myself, how did I drive before this? It's
Right,
just so
right.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I've become very dependent on the cameras, but the way that car design has changed, the roof lines are a little bit lower to be more aerodynamic, and I feel like the glass is not quite as big and open as it used to be, unless you're like in a big square SUV, but then you're really high off the ground, so you can't see everything below, kind of below your shoulder level, essentially.
Right.
And so, we were making a lot of guesses back then that we don't have to guess anymore because now we have those cameras. What other feature would you say, don't buy this car without this, or at least for you?
I love a panel sunroof.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me
So
too.
those are the two. My tops is like the panoramic sunroof. And I would say the third is the adjustable lift gate. Because me being a mom, I'm constantly carrying things, whether it be like I'm doing outdoor stuff, holding their sports stuff, or I'm just, carrying day-to-day groceries. Like having that, just like that button where I just click it and it just opens, pops up, just so
Hmm.
helpful. Yeah.
I love that. I love
So
that
the,
too. I felt like the legroom in the rear seat was really good. And that was something I really appreciated for whether it's, the big dog or the kids in car seats, the rear facing car seat. I can see there are a lot of families who live in tight urban areas. I think like Boston, Brooklyn, San Francisco, places where, parking is tight. You might have to park on the street. And you still have two kids in car seats, and so you've got to be able to fit it all, and you don't want that oversized full-size SUV. You need something
right.
that's small.
Yeah.
So, or parking in a parking structure in your building, like, the bigger it is, the more dense you get in those places, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I I'm going to weigh in on a couple of my favorite features that are standard, and
Yeah, I'd
that
love to
is
hear that. Yeah. What are your
the
features?
um the windshield wiper, the rear windshield wiper
The hidden. Okay. Yeah, it's
that's hidden.
nice. Hmm.
It's so elegant, and just kudos to you guys for doing that. It just looks beautiful, and I don't want to. It's something that I don't want to see it till I need it. But then when
Right.
I don't need it, I want it to be put away. And after seeing a windshield wiper tucked up underneath the rear spoiler, I feel like now every time I see one that's on the rear window, I think, oh, what a missed opportunity.
I'm so glad we're able to set that standard for you. No,
That, and
agree.
I like the door handles. I really like
Okay.
the door handles. Yeah, I really do. I like the center console is nice. I like the exterior design is what really rocked it for me. It looks and feels so good. I loved it in the blue. I know you guys are in love with that brown color and the whole X-line idea. And I'm like a blue on the outside and cream on the inside girl. So that's my palette. So when I saw the blue one, I was like, that is
That's
gorgeous.
actually my favorite too, that color, the frost blue, also the iceberg green. But I have a question for you. So what is your, I know that you only got to test drive the EX and the X-Line SX, but I know that you're familiar with our, trim strategy so what would be your, given your like current position,
Um,
your trim?
I think the EX does nicely.
Okay.
I want to say it was about $5,000 less than the X line. I felt like it was really nicely outfitted. There were a couple of things missing, but I don't think anything that I would necessarily miss. I believe, if I recall correctly, you can't get a panoramic sunroof in the EX, only in the SX. Is that correct?
No, you
So,
can.
oh,
You
you
can.
can.
Yeah, but you would have to
Yeah.
add on the EX panoramic sunroof package, and that comes with like the heated steering wheel, the panel sunroof, and also it has roof rails.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
so it's
probably
a
where I would
package.
go. That's
Okay.
probably where I would go with the lighter interior. I really like the interior. You guys did something really nice with picking up. It was like a three color palette interior, leatherette interior, and it had like little dashes of blue, little just tiny little touches of blue on the interior. It
Yeah.
was so elegant and so beautiful, and that's probably exactly where I would go. I did look at all the other color
Hmm.
options and the interior options when I was researching my story, and I felt like that EX was really beautifully done, and that's probably right where I would go. I don't recall, but I don't think the one we were in had a pano sunroof, but I don't really remember. But it was just gorgeous. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it might actually have because I think we did a video of that one. But it's hard when you drive a whole bunch of cars in one day. It's hard to
Right.
remember. Wait, what did I do? But I think now that I think about it, I believe we did have a panoramic sunroof in that model, and I did just love that interior, and it just felt good. And I personally I feel like features I can work around to a certain degree. If I don't have this thing or I don't have that thing, I'll accommodate. What I can't work around is the tone that is set by the interior and the feeling that I have when I walk up to my car and look at the paint. I look at the color of it and just, what it looks like on a good day, what it looks like maybe when it's a little muddy, when, it's not been a great day or the weather's kind of crummy or whatever, and
Mhm.
you walk up to your car and you just see that color and it makes you smile. I think that's what it needs to do for you. That's where the emotion, in my mind, that's where the emotion of the purchase comes in. And then you get inside and you think of all the things that it does for you now that you're inside the car, like that your dog is comfortable, that your kids' car seats fit very snugly and safely, that you're comfortable, that you can position the seat so that no matter how tall you are, whether you're 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall, you can position that seat perfectly so you've got great visibility and that you've got great command over the car. So, to me, those are the things like how does everybody live in this car? And even though my kids are grown and they're out on their own, my car, believe it or not, is still the family car. We all still drive it.
I
And
love
it
that.
still has, I don't even have a dog anymore, but both my kids have dogs. So I still have like the dog cover over the back seat. And then somebody gets in the car. I'm like, oh, I have to move this because, I'm set for the dogs.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah, so it still is, even though, I'm in a place where I think my car is all about me, it's really all about my life and not just me, not just my ego, but the life that I live. So there were a lot of things that I really appreciated in the Celtos. So I've got one last question for
Okay.
you, and I want you to talk about you as a parent, as a mom. What are the things that you want to make sure every car that you design has from the parent standpoint?
From a parent standpoint, I feel that, like you mentioned, I really resonated with everything that you said, right? It has to definitely, a car is something that we use so much on a daily basis, you know. It really has to make you feel good, make you comfortable. It really sets the tone. Like it's the first, like we all go to work first thing in the morning. You know, some days are great. Sometimes you have to drag yourself out of bed, but you know, seeing a specific color, cherry color, sets the tone. Also, I feel that, you know, a vehicle is something that really shows up for your life. It has to correspond to the things that you do, daily commutes, weekend adventures, you know, farmers market, whatever you name it. It has to be able to kind of fulfill or capable for all your activities. It also has to be safe, you know, for your families, right? I think all of that, and also, you know, people are with, you know, car prices going up, people are keeping their vehicles longer. So you're not just thinking about, oh, like let's say you're single, I'm just going to keep this car. You know, have something, like you said, the reason why we designed the Seltos how it is because we know that people are keeping their vehicles longer, and it can help with, you know, like milestones in life, like people having kids or you're downsizing and still have enough space or capable enough to do whatever that it is that's happening with your life. And I think those are really important things that I would think about when I'm purchasing a car or also when I'm designing a car. Just having
And
it, you know,
so,
show up for your day-to-day life and yeah, all of that.
and it's so nice to hear that because I think so often women think, oh, the car's not designed with me in mind or by somebody who understands my life. Um, and that's just not true.
No,
That
absolutely
is not
not.
true.
Like I mentioned, you know, we're the ones that are making a lot of these purchase decisions. I think that, you know, there isn't specific data indicating, you know, whether men or women are more intuitive, but I know that myself, and I'm married, I have a husband. I think more long term, you know,
Mhm.
I think, you know, on these decisions strategically, it's definitely good to have a female point of view, I'd
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
yeah. Think about your customer. Um, and so you're a mom, you have two boys,
Hmm.
and one is a new driver. Is one a new driver? Do I have that right?
Yes.
And so, what do you want your sons to take away from your career? They've seen you work their whole lives. What
Right.
do you want them to take away from your career?
You know, I would say that, you know, I would want any child that's transitioning into their first job to know that, you know, you don't have to choose between being ambitious and being yourself. You can always be yourself. That, you know, when you first start your job, the industry can feel intimidating from the outside, but, you know, there's a place for them, you know, whether it be automotive or something else different entirely. Um, I would want my kids to know that, or anybody who's starting out, you know, that curiosity and hard work definitely open doors. Even, you know, if you're unsure, right? Even if you feel like that door isn't built for you. And if they were to take anything from me, I hope that, you know, they will figure it out as they go along. I would encourage them to pursue anything that they're interested in, ask a ton of questions, and definitely always speak up. Have your own voice,
Mm.
um, because you belong there or anywhere, you know.
Do you think your boys will go into the car biz?
I'm not sure. I think one of them shows interest, you know, because they like cars and they think that they get to plan whatever they want. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. But I think that's, you know, my younger one's like, oh, I get to do it. I was like, no, 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 it doesn't work that way. But I think one of them is interested, but I don't feel like he understands like the entire scope of things. He's like, I like cars. I want to go into the car industry, but they may or may not. But regardless, you know, I just encourage them to pursue whatever they're interested in and just figure it out as they go along and ask a ton of questions because it's totally okay to not know. You know, that's how you learn by asking questions.
Well, I didn't know till like 15, 13 years ago that that I was interested in cars and wanted to be in the car business. So
Right.
it's okay to make that decision later too. You don't have
Right.
to come out of the gate knowing that.
Exactly.
Stephanie, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Congratulations on the launch of the Seltos. It
Thank you
is
for having me.
beautiful. And I hope everybody listening to this, if you haven't seen it yet, go take a look. It is getting a ton of buzz online, as everybody's calling it the baby Telluride, and rightly so. And, that's not a bad thing to be at all, to be slightly smaller, slightly cuter, and slightly less, leaving a little more money in the budget for other things is
And
always
if
a
you
good
don't,
thing, right?
yeah, if you don't need that third row, you have the Seltos.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Scotty.
Wow. You had a lot to say about the Seltos. I love that. But, what would you compare, how would you compare the Seltos with the Telluride?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Mhm.
And maybe next time I talk to her, we'll bring that up. Like, how did you look at that one and build this one? The Seltos is significantly smaller.
Right.
They did make it bigger than the last one, but it is definitely smaller than the Telluride. It's got a rear seat that's big enough for the for things that you would need, car seats and whatnot, but barely. It's not like the other SUVs. Like if you look at say like the Honda Passport or the Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport, which are basically two-row SUVs based on the three-row. And
Yeah.
those actually have really large rear seats. So you have more space in the rear seat than you would in the three-row. So the three-row, because the center seat moves, it's not necessarily bigger. So it's kind of interesting that those two cars, Infiniti QX65 is the same thing. It's built on the same platform as the 60, and the rear seat, because there's no third row, the rear seat's much larger. So, but that's not the case with the Seltos. It is not just a truncated version of the Telluride. However, it is a mini me in terms of design. So how would I compare them? So first of all, the Telluride has very much this Range Rover vibe to it. It looks amazing. It's just so sculpted and minimalist, and just every line, every detail is so good. And the Seltos, if you look at the Seltos, and I think if you did it in the palette that Range Rover uses, which always is like, soft satin silvers and, muted golds, and there's always a metallic value to it, or that's at least the iconic colors, maybe like the hero colors, and you can get other colors, but that's where it looks like it's in its natural place. When you look at the Seltos in that light and those types of colors, it has more of like a Range Rover Evoque or Range Rover Velar feel to it on the outside. It still has the flush door handles. It does not have a rear windshield wiper that is visible. It's tucked up underneath the roof spoiler. It has just really sharp square lines on front and back with a slightly sloped roof. The proportions are just gorgeous, and it really brings down that Telluride look and feel to a smaller and much more affordable car. It starts at about 25,000 and tops out at about 35,000. And then if you add on like the delivery charges and stuff, I think the top of the line one we drove was 37. And that's like, with the sunroof, with the premium sound, with all the things, it was $37,000. So I thought that was a good deal. I thought that was a really nicely edited group of features and selections. And I don't know, I kept asking like, so how did you do this? And she didn't reveal a lot. Maybe that's their magic, but I think it's amazing that they were able to think about the car from very specific places, the details of what we need to include. We need this car to have leatherette. We need this car to have a power seat. We need this car to have dual wireless phone charges. chargers, those kinds of things, and then build the rest of it from there. And I thought that's a very customer forward
Yeah.
way of looking at it. And I was really interested to hear that, and not just, well, this was like the best, this was the most we could put in for the money. Like, that's kind of what I expected to hear. I expected to hear like, oh yeah, we wanted to put these prestigious or premium details in here, and so we figured it out. No, what they started with was, what do customers need? And I thought that was great.
Having that intentional design behind it just makes you feel like you're part of the process with Kia. So that was really nice to hear.
Yeah. And I feel like that's true with the Telluride. I do feel like they look at the Telluride, and when they first brought out the Telluride, it was a little bit of a risk because they had never had an SUV that looked like that. And Land Rover had just come out with the Defender
Oh yeah.
the year before, and reminded the world why we love square SUVs. All our SUVs have gotten so bullet shaped.
Yeah.
And then you look at like the stalwarts, the Navigator and the Tahoe and the Suburban, they didn't change at all. But they're built on truck platforms. Well, Kia doesn't make a truck. Land Rover doesn't make a truck. So they had to build their own platforms. And so like Kia, for a long time, all their SUVs were very bullet shaped because that was aerodynamic. It was actually in the language of Lexus. It was, in that more Asian / Euro look and less North America. And so when they came out with the Telluride, all of a sudden, like everybody wanted it because it was a Land Rover for half the price.
Exactly. That was the big.
And it didn't really have the capability that the Land Rover had, but most people don't use it for that anyway. If you've got all-wheel
Exactly.
drive, that's probably the most you'll ever need. What they did though was they went back and they really picked apart why people bought that car. Why were they obsessed? Why did they love it? What did it mean to them? And I think a big part of it was it meant that I can have the car that looks the way I want it to look, that has all the features and functions that I need, especially the technology. Phone is key, the flat screen, the machine learning or AI learning system, the capability in the second and third row for kids' car seats and families and cargo, all of those things. And then they ensured that they have it in the new one, and then they take it up a level so that they build on those same building blocks, more advanced technology, ensure that capability. And then they did go back in even more into the Land Rover territory with the X line and in the Telluride, the X Pro, which is not available in the Seltos yet, because I have a feeling that if this car does the sales that they think it's going to do, that they'll probably expand the lineup with something that's a little more capable for off-road. That's my guess.
Be so exciting.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for chatting with us. I'm Scotty Reese, your host, Natalie Marola, our co-host and also producer. Our editor is Steph Howard. Our music is by Envato Elements. There is a link to our newsletter below. Subscribe to our podcast. You can get us anywhere that you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us. And please join us again for What Drives Her, the podcast from A Girl's Guide to Cars.